This is part one of a two-part series covering aircraft displayed at the MAPS Air Museum. It is an internationally known aviation museum that serves as a center of aviation history for Northeast Ohio. It features educational displays of its collections of acquired artifacts, interactive exhibits, and historical archives in its own library. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, as doing so will help others to view this. Thank you. The Martin glider was one of aviation's first monowing designs. Its first flight was on January 12, 1909, during which it flew at a height of 20 feet with an airspeed of 20 miles per hour. Because Martin's wife, Alaminia, weighed less than he, she was the glider's first pilot. Power was provided by everything from Belly the horse to a donated Ford automobile. The glider eventually made more than 100 successful flights. The Sopwith triplane was a British single-seat fighter aircraft designed and manufactured by the Sopwith Aviation Company. It began its Royal Naval Air Service operations in 1917 and was immediately successful. Its combat career was comparatively brief as it proved difficult to repair. The Sopwith is a replica made from original drawings by owner Bill Woodward from the Akron area. The lone surviving Sopwith triplane, not shown, is being preserved at the RAF Museum, London. The Beechcraft Model 18 saw military service during and after World War II in several versions. The United States Army Air Force's versions were the C-45 Expediter, AT-7 Navigator, and AT-11 Kansan, while the United States Navy used the UC-45 Navigator and the SNB-5 Expediter. Of the nearly 10,000 Model 18s built, over 5,250 were built for the U.S. military, where the AT-7 and SNB-2 trained navigators, the AT-11 and SNB-1 trained gunners, bombardiers, and pilots. The C-45, SNB-5, and JRB transported cargo and personnel, and the F-2 was used for aerial photography and mapping. Over 90% of U.S. navigators and bombardiers in World War II trained in versions of the twinned Beech. This aircraft is the U.S. Navy SNB-5 Expediter. Fairchild's PT-19 was a monoplane primary trainer aircraft that served with the United States Army Air Forces, Royal Air Forces, and Royal Canadian Air Forces during World War II. It was a contemporary of the Cadet biplane trainer and was used by the Army Air Force during primary flying training as the introductory pre-solo phase trainer for introducing new pilots to flying before passing them on to the more agile Cadet. Vulte's BT-13 Valiant was the most widely used United States Army Air Force's basic trainer during World War II. It served the second, basic stage of the three pilot training stages, primary, basic, and advanced, and was considerably more complex than the primary trainers. It also trained the students to use two-way radio communications with the ground, to operate landing flaps, and how to control a two-position variable pitch propeller. It was affectionately known as the Vulte Vibrator, had fixed landing gear, flaps, a two-seat tandem cockpit with a full set of flight controls for students and instructors, air-to-ground radio, an intercom, and blind flying instruments. During restoration, some of the panels were replaced with plexiglass to allow visitors to view the inside of the airplane. The B-26 Marauder was a World War II twin-engine medium bomber built by the Glenn L. Martin Company. It was first used in the Pacific Theater in early 1942, with service expanding to include the Mediterranean Theater and Western Europe. While it was a fast aircraft with better performance than the contemporary North American B-25 Mitchell, its relatively small wing area and resulting high wing loading required an unprecedented landing speed of 120 to 135 miles per hour indicated airspeed, depending on the load. In early combat, the aircraft took heavy losses, but was still one of the most successful medium-range bombers used by the U.S. Army Air Forces. The rugged and reliable Douglas C-47 Skytrain served in every World War II theater. It was used extensively by the Allies during the war and remained in frontline operations through the 50s, with a few remaining in operation to this day. It operated from primitive airfields close to the front lines of a war zone, carrying troops, cargo, or towing gliders. Skytrains dropped paratroopers in Normandy, marking the beginning of the D-Day invasion. The Skytrain differs from the civilian DC-3 in numerous modifications that included adding a cargo door and strengthening the floor. The A-26 Invader, redesignated B-26 between 1948 and 1965, was a United States twin-engine light bomber and attack aircraft built by Douglas Aircraft during World War II. Production centered on the ground attack version. The aircraft also saw service during the Korean War and was refurbished to participate in the Vietnam War. The Invader was an unusual design for a 1940s-era attack bomber, as it was designed as a single-pilot aircraft. The Pitts Special is a series of light aerobatic biplanes designed by Curtis Pitts. It accumulated many competition wins since its first flight in 1944. The Pitts biplanes dominated world aerobatic competition in the 1960s and 70s and, even today, remain potent competition aircraft in the lower categories. This Pitts S-1 Special is a single-seat aerobatic biplane, while the S-2 variants have tandem seating. The United States Army Air Force bought 83 L-17A Navions from North American in 1946 as a liaison and staff transport aircraft, with 36 going to the Army and 47 to the National Guard. These were supplemented by 163 Navions from 1948, with 129 going to the Army and the rest to the National Guard. During the Korean War, the U.S. Army Navions added casualty evacuations and forward air control to the aircraft's liaison and light transport duties. The Lockheed T-33 Shooting Star is a jet trainer aircraft. It started out as the TF-80C in development, then was designated T-33A. The two-place T-33 was designed to train pilots to fly jet aircraft who were qualified to fly propeller-driven airplanes. It was developed from the single-engine F-80 fighter by lengthening the fuselage about 3 feet to accommodate a second cockpit. North American Aviation designed the T-28 Trojan to replace the World War II-era T-6 Texan Advanced Trainer. It served as an Air Force primary trainer from the early 1950s through the early 60s and was also adopted by the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps. In 1962, more than 200 T-28s were modified to T-28D Nomad tactical fighter bombers for counterinsurgency warfare in Southeast Asia. The North American F-86 Sabre was a transonic jet fighter aircraft and was considered one of the best and most important fighter aircraft in the Korean War. It entered service with the United States Air Force in 1949 and became the primary air-to-air jet fighter used by American pilots. It is best known as America's first swept-wing fighter, which could counter the Soviet MiG-15 in high-speed dogfights. By the end of hostilities, Sabre pilots were initially credited by American sources with shooting down 792 MiGs for a loss of only 78 Sabres in air-to-air combat, a victory ratio of 10-1. The F-86D is the radar-equipped all-weather interceptor version of the Sabre. The aircraft is really a completely new design based on the F-86, and in fact, it was initially designated as the F-95A. In addition to the redesigned nose to accommodate the radar, the Sabre Dog was equipped with an afterburner engine, and the gun armament was eliminated in favor of a retractable tray containing 24 2.75-inch air-to-air rockets. This version of the Sabre was assigned to the Air Defense Command as an interceptor during the 1950s and later to several Air National Guard units. Starting in 1956, 981 F-86Ds were converted to F-86Ls that had a redesigned wing and new electronic equipment. Grumman's F-9F 8P Cougar was the photo reconnaissance version that had a modified nose that eliminated the guns so it could carry cameras. It housed both vertical and oblique cameras that provided improved image rendering from above. Other changes had armament systems removed, being replaced with a nose refueling probe, and the compressor ducting was rerouted to provide heat to defrost the camera windows. The Drake was designed and built by engineers at Goodyear Aircraft in the late 1940s and was completed in March 1953. It was designed to be a passenger amphibian, but it was capable of being used as a light cargo carrier by removing the rear seat and the left front seat. The pilot and passengers of the G-22A experienced excellent visibility, and a hinged right windshield gave ready access to the anchor compartment and the forward mooring cleats. The Grumman S-2 Tracker was the first purpose-built, single-airframe anti-submarine warfare aircraft to enter service with the U.S. Navy. It combined the function of detection and attack, previously performed by two airplanes, into one airframe and quickly established itself as the Navy's frontline carrier-based anti-submarine warfare aircraft. It carried an internal torpedo bay capable of carrying 2 lightweight torpedoes or 1 nuclear depth charge. There were 6 underwing hardpoints for rocket pods and conventional depth charges, or up to 4 additional torpedoes. The Republic F-84F Thunderstreak was a swept-wing turbojet fighter bomber. While it was an evolutionary development of the straight-winged F-84 Thunderjet, the F version was a new design based on swept-wing technology. It saw limited use, mostly by NATO allies, in its intended combat role, but was one of the first aircraft to make up the United States Air Force Thunderbird's flight demonstration team. By the mid-1960s, the U.S. Air Force replaced the fighter version of the Thunderjet with the North American F-100 Super Sabre and the photo version by the RF-101 Voodoo. After retirement from active Air Force units, it was assigned to duty with the Air National Guard. The last F-84F Thunderstreak retired from the Air National Guard in 1972. The North American F-100 Super Sabre, the first of the Century series of jet aircrafts, was the first Air Force fighter capable of supersonic speed in level flight. The F-100D was originally intended to fulfill the fighter-bomber role and was not designed for air superiority missions. It had 6 underwing hardpoints, and the detachable pylons used forced ejection rather than gravity release to drop their stores. Later, the ability to use Sidewinder air-to-air missiles was introduced, making it an air superiority platform. Following the Gulf of Tonkin incident, Super Sabres began flying missions over North Vietnam. These missions were generally of 2 types: MiG cap patrols to protect strike aircraft from attack by marauding North Vietnamese fighters, and fighter-bomber strikes carried out with conventional iron bombs against ground targets. The LIM-2 Midget is the Polish license-built version of the Soviet two-seat MiG-15 UTI Midget jet trainer. Because there were no mass-produced training versions of the MiG-17 Fresco or MiG-19 Farmer, the MiG-15 UTI Midget remained the sole Warsaw Pact advanced jet trainer well into the 1970s. This midget is on loan from a private owner and will be remarked with Polish Air Force insignia and markings. I hope you enjoyed this tour of some of the aircraft displayed at the MAPS Air Museum that is located in Northeast Ohio. Please remember to click the like button. Thank you.